All right, I'll be flat honest with you. This tier list is ridiculous. I've seen almost 30 movies this month, so we have a lot to get through. And let's do it. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking all of the new released films I saw in July of 2021, and I'm going to be ranking them via tier list format. I love doing these videos. If you guys enjoy this video, let me know. Drop your thumbs up. We'll keep this series going into August, and we got a lot to talk about, like I said. But more importantly, I need you guys down below letting me know what was your favorite and least favorite films of the month. Why do you agree or disagree? This is a safe space and place to talk about your opinions on films, so be sure to do that. And we're going to get into it. I'm going to try to go quick, but I always say that and I like to talk, all right? Let's start with an incredible first film to talk about, and that is Nicolas Cage's Pig, also starring Alex Wolff. And I went into this expecting a John Wick-esque action-heavy film, and what I got was almost the opposite. Even though those first 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's kind of like John Wick. From there, it was much more personal, much more subtle, and genuinely one of the best performances I've ever seen from Nicolas Cage. Pig is one of my favorite movies of the year, and the more I think about it and the subtleties and a couple of moments in particular, one where he's having a conversation with a chef, and this movie, dealing with the culinary world, hitting on things that I never expected it to hit on, hits that soft spot for me, something that I'm super interested in, and from there, it just gets more, well, intense, but intense in a very dialogue-heavy way. So it's not a film that's going to be for everyone, but it's absolutely for me. I'm going to throw Pig on the awesome tier. What a way to start out this list. Next up, we're talking Batman, The Long Halloween, Part 2. We talked about Part 1, and I thoroughly enjoyed Part 1, even though certain things about it I said, okay, we have to see how it all comes together and wraps up in Part 2. And this is a series that does follow the comic books to a degree, takes a few liberties here and there, liberties that didn't bother me all that much because they flow with the story that they're telling here. I thought Duhamel's performance as Two-Face is genuinely one of the best interpretations we've seen as the character. I really like the story this time around, and it's one of those movies where you get to see Batman, or really a superhero in general, not do a lot of action, and for some that's going to be disappointing, but it's all about the dialogue and the character progression and the story, and that's rare within a superhero movie, so I actually have to put The Long Halloween Part 2 on the great tier. This is my favorite of the two, and I thoroughly enjoyed the story they were telling. Next up, we have a classic horror story on Netflix. Now, this is a movie that attempts to do things that other movies have done before, and I'm talking to a T, but it's all part of what the story is doing, almost playing on recent films like Midsommar and a little bit of You're Next, a little bit of Wrong Turn. But the movie progresses in a way that did start to disappoint me as we went forward into the plot. We get into that third act, and I was really enjoying some of the moments and some of the visceral aspects, and it did kind of fall flat at the end, which was unfortunate. So this film had potential to be higher. I'm still going to put it on the okay tier, but yeah, it's definitely a divisive one that not everyone loved. I wish I could talk more about these films, y'all, but we just have so much to cover. Next up is America. Oh, yeah. It's the clean version. All right, this is America the Motion Picture, and this movie is insane. It's got Lord Miller's name attached to it. It does feel like Archer, from the creators of Archer, in terms of the animation. Some great voice actors in there, Channing Tatum. It is funny, absolutely. Not everyone's going to respond. This is one of those that very divisive opinion. If you don't like this style of humor, you will hate this film. And it's not historically accurate, but it's ridiculous, it's satirical, and I'm going to put it on the okay tier because there's definitely some fun to be had, and, you know, Abraham Lincoln and George Washington doing some of the craziest things you will ever see them do on any screen in any movie. Next up, we're sticking with Netflix. You guys know that's what I like to cover on this channel. So Blood Red Sky. It has the creativity of Overlord from a couple of years ago. It's mixing a lot of aspects from movies that we've seen. Absolutely, right? We've seen this, we've seen that, we've seen the terrorists take over the plane, we've seen vampires, but never has a movie brought it together in a way that was so fun, right? It does get ridiculous, and I wasn't entirely on board with the way that it wrapped up. Really, the second half as a whole wasn't as strong as the first half, but there are some very good horror-esque moments in there, some nice emotion between our lead and her son, and then one character that comes in that makes a big impact. I do think the terrorist characters, they could have been fleshed out a bit more, and some things about the story didn't quite work, but I'm actually going to throw Blood Red Sky on the okay tier. I enjoyed this movie, another Netflix film, you can see a trend there, that I had some fun with. And we're going to stick with that theme. This is how I became a superhero. And not a lot of people have heard of this film. It's a very different, more grounded, I guess, take on the superhero story in a world where being a superhero is completely normal. It reminded me of Project Power from last year. You have this detective that is on this emotional journey, a couple of retired superheroes. It's a fun story. It's a fun movie. Didn't do more than that, and it does kind of end off in a way that was very cliche, so it brought it down a notch. But, oh look, another Netflix movie on the okay tier. I'm shocked. Didn't mean for this to happen. Let's get into the Forever Purge. Forever purging. And how many Purge movies can they do? Especially after this, where it kind of does the last thing you can possibly do with the franchise. It makes the Purge last forever. Okay, that's a cool concept, I guess. And I liked certain aspects. I thought the story progressed in a very cliche way. I wasn't really on board. I didn't really have an attachment to a lot of these characters. You end off in a way that doesn't feel warranted. You set up this ridiculous over-the-top villain that doesn't feel like it belongs in this movie, but you are hitting on some very important themes within this film. So it's very much a mixed bag for me. That's why I'm going to throw it on the meh tier. Again, not a travesty when it comes to the Purge movies, but, you know, it's the Forever Purge. All right, next up, Gunpowder Milkshake, a.k.a. Karen Gillan's John Wick. And this movie was another film that was a mixed bag for a lot of people. I've heard some people hated it because, and I will say, the script is ridiculous and very over the top. It is, okay? But I feel as if it's attempting to be this stylized, over the top, very retro at times, very neon-looking movie that incorporates elements of John Wick, maybe tries to do too much at the end of the day. There are a lot of storylines going on. I liked the librarians. I liked the villainous take. Certain characters worked really well for me. Other characters, not so much. I thought Gillan was great in terms of choreography. I feel as if her character could have been stronger. So some good things, some things that didn't quite work. What puts it over the top for me and makes me want to put this on the okay tier, and we're going to do that, was the visceral action. That worked really well. And again, the visuals are awesome, but I did want it to be better. I'd say higher tier. Okay tier. Higher tier. Do I need in-between tiers now? No, I'm not going to do that. It's too complicated. Joe Bell. Keep it. Keep the struggle. Keep the struggle going. Okay tier. This is getting ridiculous. I saw a lot of okay movies in July. And again, this film had all of the potential in the world. A great performance from Mark Wahlberg, even though at times I think he may have been overdoing it, but I really liked it. The one who stole the show here was Reed Miller. For me, it was the way this movie was structured and put together. I didn't really love the editing here. I also didn't love the fact that the trailers and the marketing, this doesn't impact the movie experience, so it's not going to affect my score, but it's something that I want to hit on. It reveals something that, yes, it's based on a true story, but if you didn't know anything about it going in like I didn't, then I wish that would have worked a bit better in the film, because the film does its best to hide that at points. Then it gives you that reveal, but it's still impactful, it's still emotional, and it's dealing with a very important topic, a true story of sorts, where Mark Wahlberg's son, Joe Bell's son, is gay, and then something happens, and he's going on this journey across the United States to bring attention to that. It's a great story. I wish the execution was better, but overall, okay tier for me. How about Kingdom, Ashin of the North? And if you are a fan of the Kingdom television show on Netflix, one of the greatest zombie series of all time, you've definitely watched this movie. It does in parts feel like a prolonged episode, and I think the pacing will be an issue for some people here. I was still impacted. I loved this journey from this character, and I'm excited to see how this prequel-esque film pushes the story forward in Kingdom Season 3, and I love the action, and visually, the movie is stunning. Some of the best cinematography, color correction, all of that I've seen all year. I'm going to put this Kingdom film on the good tier. I thought it did a really good job with a lot of things. The story, I wasn't quite there to put it on the great tier, but still really, really solid nonetheless. Next up, Megan Fox, Until Death. I was shocked. It's very simple. It's a very simple journey where Megan Fox's character, she gets taken into this situation. Something crazy happens. Absolutely crazy. It's in the summary, won't even spoil it for you. And she has to escape from these two people who are after her. It's violent, it's bloody, it's intense. It's a little cliche, it's a little conventional. And we've seen the movie before, but I was just really impressed with the fact that Megan Fox could carry this film on her shoulders, and I'm going to put it on the good tier. I think it belongs on the good tier. It's a good movie. Major Grom Plague Doctor, based on a comic book, a movie that came out on Netflix. It's a foreign film that did such a good job of incorporating a lot of things, maybe too many things, at a point, from other superhero movies, but making it its own. It's almost this V for Vendetta mixed with a little bit of a Green Goblin-esque character from Spider-Man, a little bit of Dark Knight Rises in there, and it's over the top. It's almost satirical at a point, but it's fun. It's quirky. I loved all of the humor in here. I had a good time trying to piece together all of these clues. There's a big bait and switch in the third act that I thought worked well, and man, Major Grom Plague Doctor, if you like a movie like this, but you have to enjoy the over-the-top nature of certain superhero films, I think you may like this. I'm going to put this on the good tier. I had some fun with it. One that I wanted to have more fun with it, Kate Beckinsale's version of Crank. All right, you hear that and you're like, yeah, I'm in. And I was all in. You've got Stanley Tucci. You've got a solid cast. You've got a really entertaining plot in the first 15 minutes. And then the movie just starts to become really cliche, did not like the villain, a predictable reveal, too stylized at points. I thought some of the camera movements were too much. It started to feel a little bit like Suicide Squad in terms of the editing, and I just found Jolt to be, unfortunately, a bad film. It was disappointing. I needed it to be better. I really loved her performance. She was great in the film, but the surrounding product didn't quite work for me. It's on Amazon Prime right now. Then we have The Eighth Night on Netflix, and I'll be quick. Not a lot of people have seen this film. This really went for it. It attempted to be scary. It attempted to be haunting. A great sense of atmosphere, and that's what I'll give this movie. It goes for it in terms of capturing the vibe that you need it to capture. Unfortunately, it just kind of fell flat in the third act, and it's one of those where I started to get really distracted. I'm starting to play on my phone. I'm like, okay, can we progress a little bit quicker here? The pacing was a problem. I love the fact that they tried to be this really intense, haunting thriller. Didn't quite get there. It's the meh tier for me. Okay, No Sudden Move. Steven Soderbergh is back. This movie, and I know it didn't hit everyone in the same way. Some people found it to be a little bit boring. Some people found it to fall apart a little bit in the third act. And I will admit, the third act is my least favorite act. It got a little ridiculous at the end. And it almost lost sight of what made the beginning of the movie so good. A great mission by these characters, an interesting premise. You have a great cast. Don Cheadle, Benicio del Toro, Ray Liotta, John Hamm, Brendan Fraser is in this movie. It's really, really interesting, and I just had a great time. Now, some people found issues with the camera work, the fisheye lens, and some. I found it to be interestingly stylistic. I have differed with a lot of people on Cherry and No Sudden Move. I like the fact that they're trying to do something different, but it also complements the story that they're going for. It just feels artistic for me. You know what? I thought No Sudden Move was great. I thought the first two acts were more intense than almost any other movie I've seen this year. It goes on the great tier, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Okay, we're going to talk about the Fear Street trilogy all in one, because again, it's a lot of movies today. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Austin, you feel a lot different than everybody else. We watched your reviews. We know Part 2 is your least favorite, and that's the truth. I think Part 2 is, across the board, most people's favorite. The only reason it was my least favorite is because I'm not as big of a fan of the campy camp movies, and not that this was campy. It was very intense. It was very gory, but this slasher film in the midst of this summer camp setting, I've always been like, okay, it's fun, but we've seen it before. And the way that the third movie progresses, it almost makes the second movie feel as if it could have been a flashback. That doesn't take away from the quality of the film. I still thought the second movie was okay, but I feel like the other two did a bit better of a job capturing the essence of what the franchise was going for. Look, Part 1 is cheesy, no doubt in my mind. Characters make dumb decisions. I enjoy things like that if you know that your movie is progressing in that way. And I felt like all three films were very self-aware. Now, part 3 for me, and we'll get into the ranking here at the end of the video, part 3 was half and half. It was half what the other movies brought us, and then half this 1666 thriller, almost like The Witch, which I absolutely loved. I thought the atmosphere was incredible. So all three movies worked. Austin, where are they going? I'm going to put part 1, and I know I differ from a lot of people. That's okay. I'm going to put part 1 on the good tier. I'm going to put part 2 on the okay tier, and then part 3 on the good tier. We'll get into the ranking here in just a little bit. There's the trilogy for me as a whole. Okay, old. I feel old just talking about this. We just talked about it. Don't have to say too much. Look, M. Night Shyamalan, he absolutely had a brilliant concept here. Loved the concept. Didn't love the execution. That's plain and simple. That's the way that I feel. I thought it was messy. I thought it was a little bit jumbled. It's wacky, it's crazy, and it is entertaining. I will fully admit that this movie had me on the edge of my seat multiple times, but then at other points I'm hearing the dialogue and it almost feels like The Happening. It's a little bit awkward. It's a little bit cringeworthy, and the way that it comes together and kind of the twist, I guess M. Night's twist at the end, didn't quite execute for me. So not a bad M. Night Shyamalan outing, but a meh outing. I was just kind of like, okay, it's not as bad as The Last Airbender. So, the Trollhunters movie. And if you haven't watched the Trollhunters series, you're like, Austin, what is this? Move on. I've got to talk about it just a little bit. And I know, listen, some fans hated the ending of this film. Absolutely hated it. That's okay. That's fine. I didn't love the ending, I'll admit. For me, it didn't take away from the incredible journey prior to that. It was so much fun. I mean, this movie is so much fun. It's a great film for kids. That's the target audience. I was enjoying it. You know, the jokes and the humor and all of these Tales of Arcadia characters coming together, going on this big epic journey. The ending kind of killed it for a lot of people, but it didn't really kill it for me. I still thought this was a really good attempt at bringing all of this together. Changing the course of certain things, absolutely, and I do wish they would have went a different route, but I like the gutsy nature of it, man. Del Toro, how often do you get somebody doing something like that? So it's on the good tier for me. Next up, Space Jam. And Space Jam, really, I mean, you know, it's found its fans. I know a lot of people who think this is better than the original. A lot of peers who think this is better than the original, and that's absolutely okay. And I get their points. I understand why they had so much fun with it. I put my review out, and somebody messaged me, and they were like, how dare you take advantage and make videos about this film and then turn on it at the last second? I said, dude, I didn't turn on it. I just didn't really like the movie. There's a big difference there. I'm not doing this to crap on the film. And, you know, the thing is, well, you just got to fall in line with the critics. No, I watched it and reviewed it before there was a consensus on Rotten Tomatoes. I just didn't think the movie worked. It didn't capture the magic for me. Now, I will admit I'm a bit biased. I've got a little bit of a lot of nostalgia for that original. I still don't think the original is a great film, but I think it does a lot right. And the heart and the intent is there. The focus is on basketball. The focus is on the Looney Tunes. In this new one, I got Bugs Bunny. You know, Daffy Duck is there. The other Looney Tunes are just kind of there. They're not really doing all that much. A lot of awkward moments with LeBron James. And don't get me wrong, I like LeBron. I wanted him to do good. He's great in a movie like Trainwreck. In this film, it felt a little bit off, a little bit awkward, and the basketball game didn't really deliver because it wasn't really a basketball game. It was, you know, trying to do what like NBA Jam does and trying to be over the top, and that's fun. I think a lot of kids, and that's what I said in my review, a lot of kids are going to love this film. Do not let me take away from that fun for you. So I am unfortunately going to put this on the bad tier. Now, it's very close. I almost put it on the meh tier, but it's right at that edge to where I'm just going to knock it down to bad. And those are my thoughts. I didn't turn on the film, according to whoever that was. All right, Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes, let's put this on the bad tier too. You know, this movie needed to do a lot. It needed to keep the franchise going, keep it alive, start this new thing. Maybe we're doing G.I. Joe origin stories. I love Henry Golding. I think he is magnificent. He has a lot of charisma. And in this movie, he has a lot of charisma. I didn't love the writing for his character. Honestly, I'm on the other side at points in this film. I thought Tommy was a little bit more compelling. Storm Shadow was a more interesting character at points. The big killer for me for this film was the action. It's choppy, it's quick cut. It's very close up. Some points you can't tell what's going on. I'm just like, why can't we just make it better? I mean, there's great stunt choreography in there, but I can't really see what's going on. So you're almost taking away from what the actors and their stuntmen and women were able to do. And that's really unfortunate. So Snake Eyes, didn't quite come together. Not a travesty, okay? But I didn't like it. Boss Baby. It's the baby who's the boss on the Peacock. That's where I watched it. I watched it on Peacock. Is it Peacock? There's so many streaming services now. I'm going to put Boss Baby Part 2, Family Business, Business of the Family, on the meh tier. It's visually wonderful. There's some great animated moments in this film. Colorful, beautiful at points. For me, it was the story. And I love the idea that we're catching up with these characters as they're older, and now we have a new Boss Baby bringing us into the fold. I thought the voice performances were really good. It was the story that I just didn't grab onto. And as we progress, it just gets a little bit too convoluted, and I hate to say that for an animated film. There's too much going on. It takes away from the emotion. And even you look back at the first, I think that one's a bit more simplistic. This one tries to do too much. I understand this movie and this franchise has a cult following, and I am not taking away from that. I didn't watch the Boss Baby show either. It kind of felt like I needed to watch it to appreciate more so what was going on. So overall, I thought it was meh. I didn't even review it on this channel because I was like, okay, what's next? Next up, here's what's next. It's Zola, the brand new A24 film. Well, I guess not the brand new one, but one of the new A24 movies. I really liked this movie. I did. It just falls short. I mean, it is so close to being on that great tier. I'm going to put it on a high, good tier. Zola is unlike anything you will see this year. Riley Keough, Coleman Domingo, Taylor Page. Coleman Domingo gives one of the most terrifying performances I've seen all year. He's incredible in this film. It's ridiculous how overlooked his performance is going to be at the end of the year when we're talking Oscars. This movie has a style. It has this flair that I haven't quite seen anything like this year. Now, I didn't love the ending. I wasn't truly satisfied. That's kind of what keeps it from being that 8 out of 10, that great tier for me. But I did thoroughly enjoy myself, and I think this is an A24, a solid outing for A24 that belongs on the good tier. Then we have The Tomorrow War, and I felt like I was maybe the only one, myself and Sean Chandler, that thoroughly enjoyed and thought this movie was a good movie. I had a great time with it. I did. Look, there's a lot going on. I think it's way too long. That is an issue I have. The 20 minutes of this film that could have been cut out entirely. One too many subplots, but it's the heart, it's the intent, and it's the premise of the film that really gets me, and it felt at times like Edge of Tomorrow. It's not Edge of Tomorrow, but it felt like that, and I thought Chris Pratt was really compelling. Some of the dialogue, it captured that 80s, 90s cheese that we haven't had in quite a long time that's delivered like The Tomorrow War. I love the visuals. The creature design is incredible, some of the best creatures I've seen in a long time. I had a great time with this movie. Now, I can't say it's a great film, some of the writing here and there, but it was really fun. And I look at a film like this and I say, well, I was thoroughly entertained. It did its job. It's on the good tier, as is Black Widow. This movie's going on the good tier. And you're going to see, I'm going to release my Marvel Cinematic Universe tier list this weekend, so be on the lookout for that. But I think Black Widow, while a good movie, is mid-tier MCU. A few reasons why, for me personally, are because the third act gets to be a bit much. Somebody said to me, why did Michael Bay come in and direct the third act? Part of me is like, yeah, I get it, because it takes away from the heart and the subtlety and the small-scale first two acts that focused on family. Red Guardian is an incredible character. Florence Pugh gives a phenomenal performance here, and I loved so many things about this film. Unfortunately, it just didn't land. It didn't bring it home in that third act. It became a bit too complex for its own good. A lot of CGI, but I think the heart's there, the intent's there. It gave Scarlett Johansson a beautiful ending to this franchise, maybe a beautiful ending with her relationship with Disney. That's a little crazy, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. Then we have Jungle Cruise, and Jungle Cruise is one of those movies that I watched, I enjoyed. I haven't really thought about a lot since then, but I still think it's a film that works extremely well for its intended audience. I'm going to go very low good tier. This almost went on the okay tier, But then part of me sits back and says, we don't, as I'm literally sitting back, we don't often get movies like this anymore. Movies that capture the fun and the heart and the spirit of those 70s and 80s adventures, a little bit of Indiana Jones, a little bit of Pirates of the Caribbean, a little bit of Romancing the Stone. There's just a lot in here that Disney, I believe, brought to the table that we don't often get. Now, did I care about the other villain, a.k.a. not Jesse Plemons? And I love Edgar Ramirez as an actor, but that storyline just was like, okay. I mean, this is feeling more like the Pirates sequels, 4 and 5, than what I was getting from the heart of the story. Then you have Jesse Plemons, who is giving a quirky, hilarious, ridiculous performance. He has a full conversation with a bee, okay? And that part was really fun. So I think families are going to love this film. I think kids are going to love it. They're going to grow up with it, just like I did the first Pirates of the Caribbean. So all that coming together, I believe it belongs on that tier for me personally. But again, it's not one that I will hold in high regard at the end of the year. I also just realized I didn't put Escape Room 2 on this template. Uh-oh, that means I'm going to have to edit it in with some movie magic. But really quick, Escape Room Part 2. It was fun at points. I love the different environments and the locations and bringing back our two characters that we cared about in the first film, but the story for me didn't have it compared to the first film. And all of these other characters, this Tournament of Champions, maybe if this would have been like the fourth sequel and we knew these other characters, because this second film does a bad job compared to the first with giving us backstory and things we need to care about these other characters, whereas the first film introduced them all in a very compelling way. Unfortunately, I'm going to put this on the meh tier. It was a bit of a meh sequel for me, and yeah, just not a movie that fully landed. You know what did land for me? And here is another divisive film, and I'm already seeing it. I knew it. I knew this was going to be rotten in terms of the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, because that's just the way these films go. Uncut Gems, Hereditary's horrible cinema score. That's just the way A24 goes. They make films that make you feel uncomfortable, that make you sometimes regret going out to the theater and watching it in the first place. And I get it, man. This film, especially The Green Knight, it's not going to be for everyone. And that's not me saying, well, if it's not for you, then you have a horrible opinion. I've heard some very good takes on this movie. Peers that didn't love it as much as I did. Peers that didn't respond to the story or, the way that it progressed or fully understand or comprehend it in the way that I believe that I did personally. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. I think that's one of the beautiful things about movies is that we can all kind of approach, especially a film like this, especially a David Lowery movie, okay? Because A Ghost Story is the exact same way. But for me, and this is my tier list, I thought this film was awesome. I truly did. I thought this film was absolutely awesome. I just had the best time with The Green Knight, okay? Locked in. Visually, cinematography-wise, color correction, it is the best movie of the year. No doubt, 100%, lock it in. I will argue that all day. On a technical level, it's the best film of the year so far, right? But what The Green Knight was able to do in terms of impacting me, giving me a great journey, Dev Patel's performance, and almost this coming-of-age story. And I just talked about it in my review, so you can go watch that review to get my full thoughts, but I just responded and resonated, and I was entranced by this journey, and then that little montage at the end is one of the best scenes or combination of scenes of the year. And the journey, for some, will feel like it's all for nothing. I disagree, but I thought The Green Knight was an awesome, awesome film. If you're still here, thank you so much. You probably turned away because of my Steelers shirt, but I appreciate you for being here. Okay, let's rank these movies. It's a lot of films. Let's do it. And just taking a look at this here, there's one thing that I feel like I did wrong, and I'm going to apologize right now. I feel like I put The Boss Baby Part 2 too high. The more I think about what I gave it and where I ranked it, I have to put it on the bad tier, unfortunately. So we're going to put Jolt at the bottom, move Boss Baby ahead of Snake Eyes, but we're going to keep Space Jam in front of it. And I think that feels a little bit better for me. See, that's why you got to stick around, okay? Things change. On the meh tier, I have The Eighth Night at the bottom. And because it wasn't on the template, we're just going to put a tiny little picture of Escape Room right there, followed by the Forever Purge. And Old is actually on the top of the meh tier. Congratulations, Shyamalan. Next up, we have A Classic Horror Story at the bottom, followed by Blood Red Sky. We're going to replace Fear Street Part 2 with Joe Bell, keep Fear Street right there. And I'm going to go ahead and move Gunpowder Milkshake to the top and keep America and How I Became a Superhero in those spots. That's kind of where I have them ordered on Letterboxd, so that's how they're going to be ordered on here. On the good tier, wow, this one's tough. Let's go Trollhunters at the bottom. Jungle Cruise in the next spot. Then we have right in front of Jungle Cruise, let's go Major Grom Plague Doctor, followed by Megan Fox's Till Death. I'm going to go Tomorrow War right after that. And now we are getting into the Fear Street trilogy. Fear Street is going right in front of the Tomorrow War. And right in front of 94, we're going to go 66. So that completes the Fear Street trilogy. And then we get our Kingdom film, which was just so visceral and mesmerizing, followed by, I'm going to go Black Widow in that spot. So Zola is at the top of my good tier. It's officially my number 5 movie of July. On the great tier, we have 2 thoroughly great movies, but I have to go No Sudden Move, just slightly above Batman The Long Halloween Part 2. And on the awesome tier, we're going to go Pig at 2, Green Knight at 1. And don't worry, guys, I will be seeing Suicide Squad this next week, so expect it on my August tier list. There were no screenings within 7 hours of me, so didn't get to see it. But thank you guys so much for all of your support, for sticking with me, and for watching these tier lists. They are so much fun to make. Is there a movie that I missed? I know I haven't seen Stillwater yet. I'm trying to go see it this weekend. If I see it, I'll include it on next month's tier list. But if you want to check out that review, maybe this weekend, go check it out. Regardless, you guys the best. Thanks so much for watching. This was a lot of fun. I'll see you soon.